So here the devices are locally used, or they stay in some other location like server or somewhere, or any test engineer can use the devices?
So you can do it both. You can download the software, install it on a Windows machine, connect 10 devices, and create your own lab. Or we also provide it as a service. We have a huge bank that we host their devices, and they have a dedicated lab. Or you can use shared devices, depend on the security level that you require.
Hi everyone, my name is Suresh. My company name is Untitled Software Private Limited. So we use the same kind of infrastructure in our company. So the main challenge we face here is the maintaining the test. So how do we maintain the test?
So usually when you refer to test maintenance, you are referring to object identification, the application under test that is changing. Now, usually you will need to maintain tests because you did a lot of work around. You had some element in the UI and you didn't have any way to identify it, so you used the class name, you didn't have an ID or accessibility label, so you did some workaround. You needed the cooperation from your R&D, so this workaround will be an official commitment from the R&D. This is how we identify this element. Now, if you will continue doing workaround, there will always be failure. But if you're doing this execution, and this is the first thing that the developer sees, and he cannot commit his code because of that, then the first thing that we will do is to fix it, provide you the IDs that you need in order to identify and maintain the test. And when you do this huge execution, it will remove any fluctuation in your test. Because after some times you will make your test more and more robust. And as the cycle here could be minutes, you will, if a test is not robust, you will identify it in a much earlier stage.
Hi everyone, I'm Shrija. I'm from Tawan. I work on testing of big data analytics solutions. And a requirement from most of our customers is that continuous integration and deployment. So how does this continuous testing process fit into a continuous release and deployment?
Can you speak up? I'm not sure I fully understand.
So now that you have demonstrated the continuous testing process, how does this further translate into continuous release and deployment and sending the code on to production?
Okay, so if you have everything automated, and what you can do is once this process ended successfully and all of the tests passed successfully, you can trigger a process that will deploy the application into stage, run the test on the stage, then deploy the application into production, run monitoring on the production. So this is the machine that you can build. So your responsibility is to build the gates, whether to push it from QA to stage and then from stage to production.
That's all the time we can spare. Thank you so much, Guy. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Guy Rayleigh. Guy, if you may please go on the stage. I'd like to, one of our keynote speakers, would like to do the honors. Ladies and gentlemen.
Assets together to develop, to deliver our application. So that's kind of some of the use case and some of the fundamental justification around service virtualization. I want to talk, I'll do the quick flyby on who we are. I work for SmartBear. We're a company based out of Boston, Massachusetts. We have offices around the world, including here in Bangalore. And we are the company, a lot of people don't know who we are until I say, have you ever heard of SOAP UI? And they say, yeah. I say, well, that's us. We're the guys that created, invented SOAP UI and open sourced it. And we go from there. You ever heard of Swagger? Yeah. We're the guys that invented Swagger and open source Swagger. But we're not just about APIs. We'll do a little bit, it's not a very clear picture there, but a quick flyby on that. We are a company behind, we do UI testing, with UI test management with a product called QA Complete, and test automation for web, desktop, and mobile applications called Test Complete is one of the top tools on the market there. I haven't really talked about that today. We've been talking today more about our API testing tools. Let's see, where's the thing? Anyway, I'll jump up there. Our API testing tools being the functional testing tools with SOAP UI, the load testing tools for Load UI, and service virtualization with Service V Pro. We have a fairly full stack with test automation for UI and test automation for the API layer. We also offer tools in this area for performance monitoring once you've pushed your application into production, determining whether that service is available, whether it whether it's performing within some SLA that you've defined, and whether it's returning the right data that you expect it to. Also want to make a call out to our newest product at SmartBear called Swagger Hub. I mentioned earlier that we're the company behind Swagger, the open source tool. You guys familiar with Swagger? Many people? Okay, many people nodding their heads, yeah. For those of you not familiar with Swagger, Swagger is the industry standard for REST API design, documentation, and definition. When we released Swagger, we formed something called the OAI, the Open API Initiative, and I believe there's somebody from OAI speaking later today, I believe. And in that we were joined by the big hitters out there, IBM, Google, Microsoft, and so on, joined us in the launch of the Open API. And as a result of that, frankly, that is why Swagger became the industry standard for REST, for the creation of REST APIs. Now, we're an open source company, but we have to make a living, so we provide a commercial variant called Swagger Hub, which enterprises use when they're rolling out more larger teams and working in a more complex environment for REST-based definition. And I bring that up because one of the most interesting implementations of Swagger is in microservices implementations. It is purpose-built in many ways for microservices deployment, building microservices applications. And it works very well with the rest of the stack in that API testing arena. With that, I'm done, and do we have time for a few questions? I don't know. Where's our guy? Oh yeah, a few questions. I don't see our guy with the microphone though. Yes, sir. I'll repeat your question. Hi.
Should I repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, repeat it so everybody can hear it.
All right. So in one of the slides, I saw a comment that says API tests take too long. In context of taking too long, what does that mean actually?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the context that I was saying that in was an individual unit API test. It's pretty fast, right? I mean, you can run an individual unit API test pretty straightforward. I'm thinking more in the context of workflow and stringing those together, the ability to express those tests, and then using a data-driven approach to drive data into those tests. That's where the delays can come in. The more tooling you can apply to it, shameless plug for SOAP UI Pro, the more tooling you plug into it, the more rapidly you can express that test and the more rapidly you can execute those tests. SOAP UI does stuff like distributes the test across your network and parallelizes it, and good things that you'd expect a high-end test automation tool to do.
So it's not the test that takes too long, it's the dependency that takes too long.
It's dependencies that take a long time, and then it's the expression of the test for sure. And the fact that if you have the dependencies are the key driver, because then you can start parallelizing your tests across the network. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And just
Sure.
to let you know, we do use SOAP.
All right, there you go.
Ashish here. I'm from Amdocs. So wanted to know that, API testing all looks good with this approach that we are mentioning here. But when you really go for it, I think persistence and patience is very much required. Moment your API changes, the entire orchestration goes for a toss, and the maintenance part comes into picture because your code keeps changing, and more with CI thing across, it will keep changing, and the rightly set thing across a commit will again change the entire sequence. And then you really need to get back to the basics and get, so the maintenance part will be more in the entire API thing across. And how does your tool really help in that area to make it easier for a tester?
The question relates to the regression testing effectively, correct? To some degree, regression testing to maintain it. Yeah, I don't think there's any specific, I mean, Sanket, you could jump in here, but I don't think there's anything specific that we need to do different than we do anyway, as you build up your test cases against an individual unit test of that API and then build it across and its dependent APIs as well. I think that we help it out by, one area we help it out by is allowing you to leverage test data sets as need be, that the test data sets will grow and vary in that way. You'll be able to, because we have drivers that allow you to do point and click data-driven testing for your API suites that can be very helpful in regression testing down the line, because those will be changing as you enhance your system and as you enhance your environment and so forth. So would you add anything to that? Okay.
Yeah.
He's
Thank you.
He's the smart guy. I'm anyway.
You'll take it